Good morning. Welcome to the Captain's Chat. My name is Joe Delagrave. I am joined today by Bill Renje. He is a 1996 and 2000 gold medal Paralympian. He also won the World Championship gold in Toronto in 1998. And man, I'm excited to talk to him. Probably from that era, 96, 98, 2000, and then 2006, 2008, 2010. Those three. World Championship and Paralympic, those are probably the two most dominant eras of wheelchair rugby. And so we're going to be able to hear from Bill. He has an amazing story through when he was hurt all the way through his rugby career, now as a father and husband and doing work with life change concepts. Just a tremendous guy. And so I'm super excited to be able to talk to him, kind of pick his brain, maybe introduce you guys to someone that maybe you haven't heard about before. Because we don't really get to hear the name Bill very often, except when Rudy's talking about the glory days and talking about all these guys. And so I'm really excited for the conversation. So without me blabbering anymore, let's get Bill on. Let's talk to him. As always, we can see your questions. So pop up those questions. I think they'll be great for Bill, and we'll get started. So Bill, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, Joe. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. I've got a couple fun trivia games for you to play today, which I think you'll do great in. I'm a Chicago sports fan as well, so I'm kind of excited to maybe talk about some days that maybe when I was like the year I was born was the Bears' best memory as a football team, and I'm actually a Packers fan. I'm Chicago everything except the Packers. Grew up in Wisconsin, and Brett Favre just stole my heart back in the day, man.
Yeah, that's a rough blend right there, man. I don't know how you can you manage all that, but hey, you got a Cubs hat on, so we'll forget the Packers side for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, let's dive in. So some of the listeners might not even know, and I think this is one of the reasons that I love reaching out to players in the past from USAWR, whether it's 96 or 2000 or 2004, or, and it's been, it's been 20 years, 24 years from 96 already. I'm sure that's flown by in some regards, but tell us a little bit about your story, about how you got hurt and about, how you found rugby.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Chicago area, the suburbs, and I was, pretty active kid. Ran around, played baseball, football. Those were really my two main sports. And long story short, when I got into junior high and high school, like a lot of kids, I started experimenting with some different things, and drinking and drugs, and just was curious. Was a rebellious kid, and that was what a lot of my friends were doing, and I kind of fell right in with that, and so I, got into the drug scene when I was in high school. And when I was 18, I ended up on the wrong side of a bullet, got shot in the neck in a drug buy at the C6, C7 level. So obviously, life-altering event. It was 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, and no one ever says when they're in high school that they want to spend the rest of their life in a wheelchair. They want to be a quadriplegic for the rest of their life. So
I haven't met anyone like that yet.
No. So it definitely wasn't anything that I had planned out, but it's just kind of one of those things that, really God used it, because I was head down and was on the wrong path at the time, clearly.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't know how you guys were back when you're on the team, but a lot of my teammates, we always talk about, how you get hurt or whatever. And, so, some people are like, hey, I dove into shallow water. And we're usually like, get a new story because you're an idiot. Like, why'd you do that? Type of deal. But like, your story is very unique. Obviously, it's different than most people. Like, when you got shot, was it just obviously it's a life-changing event, but was your life on the line at that point? You get a bullet in your neck? Like, how'd that go about?
Yeah, it was like it was in a drug buy. It was actually by a police officer, and pulled into this parking lot. We'd gone to pick up our stuff before, and there was a drug bust on the way. It was 2:00 in the morning. So there was all kinds of chaos, and there was cops running around, drug dealing suspects laying face down with their hands behind their head. And so my buddy said, let's get the bike out of here. And I said, yeah, let's do that. on certain times. So we started to pull out, and this plainclothes undercover police officer came up and started banging on my driver's side window. I was driving and just starting to pull out. And, he said, get the, F out of your car. And I didn't do that. I started to take off. As I did, the car nudged him, and his gun went off. So I saw this flash. My driver's side window shattered. And my first thought was, man, what am I going to tell my dad? Because the window was shattered out. And then a second later, I realized I had bigger problems because, like I said, the bullet went in, bruised my spinal cord, ended up finding its final resting place behind my right lung. Deflated my lungs. So I was having a hard time breathing. Didn't know if I was going to live or die. I just remember crying out to God at that point, saying, don't let me go out like this. I want this to be the last memory that I leave behind for my parents and my brothers. And so obviously he gave me another opportunity, but I knew instantly I was paralyzed. It was obvious. I remember being able to move my right arm just a little bit. So I took some comfort in that, knowing I wasn't paralyzed from the neck down. But I knew instantly I was paralyzed, and that it wasn't good.
Yeah, man. So you're 18 at the time, right?
Yep, that was just about a month before my 18th birthday.
Yeah, about a month before 18. So you're in the hospital, you turn 18. And a lot of us, we go through this dark period. I mean, it's not easy to be like, hey, you're not going to walk again, and you're going to spend your life in a wheelchair, and you're going to have to do this, and this for everyday activity, everyday life skill, whatever it would be. And for a lot of us, like, you had that like burning desire to compete still. You have that burning desire to do something still. Like, how did you find out about wheelchair rugby? How'd you find the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting, had finished up breakfast, and I wasn't even able to push my wheelchair at the time. So they wheeled me over to where the elevator is. I was at the Rehab Institute of Chicago up on the 7th floor, and waiting for the elevator to come down to take me up to physical therapy. And there was a flyer just right there next to the elevator. It said quad rugby. And I remember looking at it going, that looks pretty cool, And I was like, I have no idea what that is. But yeah, I like sports. I like contact. I was like, maybe I could try that someday, But right now, at that point, like I said, I couldn't even push a wheelchair. You know how it is. And I'm a 1.5, so a little pointer. I mean, I had to learn how to push a chair, how to transfer myself, dress myself, bathe myself, all that from ground zero. So the thought of, rolling and flying up and down a basketball court playing rugby wasn't front and center at the time. But that was my first, I remember just seeing that flyer, and that piqued my interest, And from there, I met a couple of the guys from the team that came in, that would hang around the, outpatient, come in to do outpatient rehab, and I was doing inpatient rehab, and started picking their brains, and a couple of the therapists that were familiar with the game, and they explained the game to me, and I was like, man, that sounds really, really cool. So how do I get involved?
Yeah. And when you first get involved, and obviously, I mean, you had a phenomenal career. Like, not a lot of people can stack up what you guys were able to do in 96, 98, and 2000. But from a bare bones, the sport is so monumental for a lot of guys and women that play the sport that it's a rehabilitative instrument. It's important for getting you to be able to be independent, or see other guys in that situation. It's kind of like a support group for people that don't like support groups. And you get around other people, and you're in a locker room again, and you're in an environment where you can talk about some things that maybe you thought were too taboo to talk about outside of this sport. How was that for you? How important is that rehabilitative instrument as that sport was for your growth?
Oh man, it was life-changing and life-altering. I was never part of a spinal cord injury support group because rugby wasn't my support group. And, I can remember, back then I wasn't driving yet, and the big old handicap accessible van that you can see from 3 miles away would come from your house, so all your neighbors could see, and then drop you off at the gym. And I remember seeing guys that were 10, 15, 20 years older than me getting out of vans and getting out of cars. And I'm a 1.5, and I'd see guys that had less function than me, class 1s, transferring out of cars, getting wheelchairs out of cars. And I was just blown away, man. I was like, holy, you could do that. And then I'd start talking to these guys and find out that, they were either in school or, had moved down into careers. Some of them were married with kids and own their own homes. And, I'm living at home with my mom and dad, drawing $400 a month for Social Security disability, trying to get back into junior college and seeing all that. It was like, okay, I can do all that too, man. It just, it gave me inspiration, and it was definitely life changing.
Yeah, I think sometimes like our community forgets that, where there's the competitive side, and now the sport's grown significantly in the last 20-25 years, and everyone's like, I want to compete at the highest level, blah blah blah. I'm like, what's crazy is that's all great. Like it's amazing to be able to compete on an international level. That's fantastic. But I think a lot of times guys got to remember, hey, like you're doing life-changing work within your like club team. And I think that's forgotten a lot, whether it's Division III, Division II, Division I, national championships, whatever it is. Like you could lose all your games and you're still changing people's lives simply by just being kind and sharing your experiences with people.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's some of the guys that had the most influence on me, they've been long since forgotten by the rugby community, and never made a national team, and never won an all-tournament team. They were just guys out there, and kind of the club team mentality, where they never had any desire to play beyond that or ability to play beyond that. They had an impact on me, and I try to have that impact on other guys as well. But you're right. As you get competitive and start kind of rising through the ranks, that could tend to kind of take over and become your focus.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of finding that balance, is being an ambassador for, and out in the community too, because we want to educate people. My focus has always been to let people know out there in the community, in the able-bodied world or whatever, that just because you see somebody in a wheelchair, just because somebody's in a wheelchair, doesn't mean their life's over. But they can still attain everything you can attain, and live a fully functional life. So we're ambassadors for spinal cord injury, the SCI community, and the disabled community as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think mentorship's a big aspect with that too. I mean, through your work, since you've been out of rugby, you've done a lot of mentoring as a job, and in a couple different avenues, and then done some real estate stuff as well before that. But like in the sport of wheelchair rugby, who are those mentors for you that were inside the sport or maybe outside the sport during your playing days? Like, who are some big mentors for you?
Yeah, I think, my teammates back in Chicago, my rookie year, and then going down to the University of Illinois and, working on my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. I spent 3 years down at U of I. So, guys like Norm Lyduck and Sean Meredith and Paul Lavasser, I mean, we kind of supported each other. We were all the same peer group. I think we kind of pushed each other without even verbally doing it, just by, each of us getting out and doing life and achieving on the court and off the court. It kind of forced, everybody else and our teammates to kind of up their game too, in life as well. And then, of course, when I got to Tampa, that program was just in a whole nother level. I played in Chicago for a year, went down to U of I for 3 years, back to Chicago for a year. And then in my mid-20s, I relocated to Tampa after the '96 Paralympics. And just guys there like, Terry Vineyard was the coach at the time, Joe Soares, Dave Gould, Dave Cerruti, all 4 of those guys are Hall of Famers.
Legends, yeah.
Of the game. And to get around those guys and just see the work ethic, how they apply them, themselves to the game. And that program was just at another level. And so that forced me to, when you got in their gym, you were either going to get better or you're going to quit. And it was, I got better, and, it was just kind of through osmosis and seeing what those guys did and how they applied themselves to the game. And then, again, taking that work ethic off the court and taking that work ethic on the court and applying it off the court as well, to my academics and then ultimately my career, my family.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that I had a similar experience when I moved to Phoenix. April and I are just weird. We moved back to the snow, which,
we're going back. Once I left Illinois, once I left the Midwest, that was it for me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, so it's 11:15. It's game time here on the Captain's Chat, and I've got some good games for you. A little trivia action, and we're going to start with my birth year, not to make you feel old whatsoever, but the 1985 Bears. We had Chris Cook on earlier a couple shows ago, and I had him do the 94 49ers, and he's everyone knows that Cookie is he's
a Bay Area sports
buff. Bay Area sports buff, man.
He nailed it.
He was pretty good. So what we're gonna do, we'll give you 30 seconds and see if you can name the starting offensive team for the 1985 Bears Super Bowl championship.
Probably do it in less than 30 seconds.
All right, let's hear it. Ready? Go.
We'll start with quarterback McMahon, Peyton, Suey, Dennis McKinnon, Willie Galt as wide receivers. Emery Moorhead was a tight end. And then offensive line would have been Thayer, Van Horn, Hilgenberg, Bortz, and Mark Thayer.
Wow. Just destroyed it. Cookie,
I'm pretty pathetic when it comes to that knowledge of I can't remember sports, teams from 3-4 years of the rosters, but when you get back in the day like that, it's imprinted on my brain.
Okay, what do you got for the defense? He just crushed the offense.
Yeah, that would have been across the front would have been Hampton, Perry, McMichael, Dent, the cornerbacks Leslie Frazier, Mike Richardson, linebackers Singletary, Marshall, Wilson, and then Dewerson and Fensick would have been the safeties.
Just destroying it. That is awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
That is awesome.
If I know nothing else, I know that.
That's fantastic. Well, how about this? Can you
it's also a testament to the fact that the Bears have only won one Super Bowl, and for all Bears fans that we like to return back to 1985.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Since that took like 20 seconds, and normally it takes a lot longer for everyone else. Can you give me? So we do this on the team still. So we'll do Joe impersonations, Joe Soares.
Oh my gosh!
Do you have one? I know you have one.
I always left that to like Gumby and Rudy, and I cannot believe that in 2020 you guys are still doing Joe Soares impersonations. But
it's too good. It's too good, man.
Yeah,
they're great,
brother. He was Joe's classic, man. I love it, and he's the one. When I was at tryouts in 1996, and I knew I wanted to move and leave Chicago, and previous to that, we were at the tournament in Tennessee, and we're getting ready for Sunday night to fly back to Chicago where it's 15 degrees. The Sharp Shadow guys are going back to San Diego. The Tampa guys are going back to Tampa. And I'm like, man, there's something wrong with this picture.
Yeah.
2 months later and I was using rugby to parlay that into a better move somewhere else. And I was going to go, Sharp Shadow, man, and be there 1-5 or whatever. And
why wouldn't you? It's San Diego. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And they were the team on the rise. They won their first championship in '96. Yeah. At tryouts, Joe said, "Hey, if you want to come to Tampa, you can stay with me as long as you need and help you find a job and a place to live." And I came down for months.
So he was like, he goes, "Hey, Billy, listen, Billy, you come down to Tampa, you play with me. We're going to win championships.
Me, Rudy, Goldie. Yeah, that was it, man.
We'll watch the Red Sox. You won't be a Cub fan anymore. White Sox, you'll be a Cub or Red Sox."
Yeah, well, he knew that wasn't going to happen. We had a lot of heated debates back then, our sports city, Boston or Chicago. So, of course, I can't make that argument in the last 20 years, but I try to stick my claim for Chicago.
Yeah, of course. No, that's awesome. That's great insight. I love that. Hey, so with your whole rugby career and the success of that, how did you use that to kind of like have a successful post rugby career? I think a lot of athletes, whether it's professional or whether it's they're getting paid millions of dollars, or it's rugby players that don't get paid anything, but it's still a transition period because you have that wrapped up kind of in your identity a little bit. And how do you transition out of that and into a successful professional career?
Yeah, well, on one hand, honestly, it's still tough. I haven't played in 15 years, and it's hard to replicate that camaraderie anywhere else you have from team sports, but yeah, everything, when you're 18 years old and, you're paralyzed, C67 chest down, and, your whole world is shaking. And, if I had to stack up the top 3 or 4 influences in my life, obviously my parents wouldn't be where I'm at without their support, and then God kind of guided me and leading me every step of the way. But rugby's right there, man. I mean, rugby was, everything I am now, everything I become is because of the confidence I gained in rugby. My first year in Chicago, we had 15 guys on the roster. I mean, I was literally 14th on the depth chart. I never thought back then that within 5 years I would be on a national team. So to be able to kind of to put in the time and the effort and the work and get to that level, that made me realize, okay, and so any success that I've been able to achieve, in the business world, or, with the ministry now, or, my marriage and my family, that's all part of that rugby foundation. I mean, I have no doubt that I would not be anywhere close to where I am. I don't know where I'd be in my life if it wasn't for, the time I played rugby.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, and obviously as an author, so we haven't got I didn't even introduce you as an author, and I should, because you've authored 2 books, and most quads sit around and talk about how they're going to write a book. You've written 2. And so it's an incredible accomplishment on both of those. And they're 2 completely different books. One's The Chosen Bullet, which talks about basically your journey through the gunshot, but then also, talk us through a little bit about it using kind of the sports background and everything like that to kind of talk through your story.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. So and I have a master's degree in journalism, so I obviously like to write. And so, I've done a lot of freelance writing. Never really used writing to make a living for myself and provide for my family. It's always been like supplemental income.
Yeah.
I always had people, like you said, every quad, you ask people, hey, you need to write your book, So I just felt called and led to do it back in 2010. And I was transitioned at the time. I had left the business world. I was looking to go into ministry with FCA, and took about 6 months to really just write my book. And it was just my whole journey, and really interweaving my story with my wheelchair sports background, wheelchair rugby, and then also my recollections of my the teams of my youth, the Bears and the Bulls and the Blackhawks and the White Sox and the Cubs, and just how I even took inspiration from those teams. So I just wove it all together. And sports is just such a great metaphor for life, and
absolutely,
it's always been such a big part of my life, and so it's easy to apply those lessons to life, and try to do all that with the Chosen Bullet.
And we can find that on Amazon.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely awesome. And then another book that you just wrote, which is, I mean, you wrote it before or kind of during all this, but at the same time, like, it seems like it's came up again with everything with George Floyd and everything going on in the country. And tell us a little bit about this book and talking about the art of empathy in a divided culture.
Yeah, and that's really something through the ministry that I grew up in pretty much an all-white world, and that was really all I knew, through college and through the business world, and didn't really have a lot of connection to the Black perspective, the African American perspective, and so I had a lot of biases and prejudices and stereotypes, like I feel a lot of people who grew up in that world and grew up in white Chicago suburbia. But the ministry in the last 10 years here in South Metro Atlanta, it's at a lot of the schools that I've been in, it's not just been predominantly Black, it's been all Black. Teams I've worked for, that I've been the chaplain with, that I've done FCA character coaching with, and I've just gotten to know a lot of coaches and players that have helped broaden out my perspective. And so, empathy, the art of empathy in a divided culture, just simply is, we don't always need to come to an understanding or agree on everything. You and I don't need to agree on everything, but, I should try to see your perspective. If we would do a better job of seeing somebody else's perspective, trying to put ourselves in somebody else's their life experiences, their backgrounds, I think it would help us gain empathy, that help us gain understanding, and that would get us a long way towards reconciliation we need. We're in such a divided culture now where you go in your corner, you're liberal, you're Democrat, you're Republican, you're conservative, you're black, you're white, whatever. And that's kind of how we tend to see things, and I'm all about pulling people, from both sides, trying to, I'm kind of that center right moderate. I want to bridge the gap and bring people from both sides over, and you're always going to have people that are hardened on one side or the other that are never going to see what you want to see. But, I think, I've been able to draw people from both sides, but I've also irritated people from both sides. That tells me that I've done a fairly decent job, because if you're, in this culture, if you could build bridges and draw people, at the same time you're irritating people on both sides, you're probably doing something right.
Absolutely. Well, you can check out Bill on Facebook as well. And I'm sure that, some of the conversations that you start, you can irritate people or bring people together, but you're speaking from the heart and speaking from what you feel led is right. And I think that's amazing. And culture is something that we're trying to build at USCWR. Like we're like throughout the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, trying to build it in the right way in a foundational standpoint. And so whether you're pulling that from like the 96, 98, 2000 run or from your work in ministry, like what's your take on culture? What's important when you're trying to build a really good, solid team culture?
Yeah, I mean, and for me, it all starts with my, my Christian foundation. I didn't talk too much about it earlier, but I became a born again Christian and gave my heart to the Lord in 1995.
Yeah.
And, that has just been, really above and beyond everything else, what I've been able to build my life on. So I try to live as Jesus would live, and that's not easy to do because he was Jesus, but he didn't fit into any particular box.
Yeah.
If he was here today, he wouldn't fit into that box that, a lot of people think he would fit into. And so I try to just build culture and try to have empathy and understanding for other people, and just try to put myself in their shoes. But it is important, and it starts with our youth, and obviously what we're teaching them about loving other people. And again, that doesn't mean that we always need to agree.
Yeah.
But at least get to that point where we can, if we disagree, we do so reasonably, as opposed to, the fingers that get pointed back and forth now, and, so much of the demeaning and the hatred that goes on. It's just, at some point we got to get beyond that. I don't know that we ever will, but, we can all do our best to try to foster that, that growth and within our hearts, because really that's where it starts. We've got to be transformed. The Lord has to transform me in my heart, in my mind. I can expect my family, my marriage, and then my sphere of influence around me to be transformed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and what you said there too is like in the spirit of trying. And I like a lot of people live in fear of saying something wrong, fear of making someone unhappy, or like fear of like getting misinterpreted. And a lot of people say, I'm too afraid to try, so I'm not even gonna try. But like even just trying to understand, trying to have empathy, trying to see someone else's point of view and understand where they're coming from, because I think that's where a lot of that starts, where you're going, okay, at least I'm being authentic and trying to understand where someone's coming from, and then the bridge starts getting built a little bit there. So man, that's good stuff for sure.
Yeah, it's just, it really starts with listening, and I'm assuming probably most people in our audience today, sit in wheelchairs, part of the spinal cord injury community, and we want people to understand us, and the way that can happen is for people to listen to us, so we need to extend that same courtesy to others.
Absolutely.
Especially those who have a different skin color.
Yep. Yeah. What's your journey through sport taught you? Like what was a big takeaway for you?
I think just resiliency and perseverance. What
do you mean resiliency? You guys won gold. There's no. Come on.
If I,
come on.
we did, but back in those days, when I started, like I said, when I went from Illinois or Chicago to Illinois, back to Chicago to Tampa, when I got in that Tampa gym, it was a different story, man.
Yeah.
We were practicing 3 hours Tuesday night, 3 hours Thursday night, 6 hours on Saturday, and it was just it was brutal, man. There was a lot of perseverance that went into that resiliency. And I can remember showing up in Tampa and a little arrogant and thinking, oh man, I was already a national teamer at the time, and so I had arrived, and I learned real quickly that I had not arrived, and I realized that with the guys around me that I had to really up my game.
Yeah.
And Terry Vineyard, didn't take much crap from anybody back then, and certainly wasn't going to take it from a 25-year-old like me, on the cocky side at the time. So the resiliency and just resiliency being a quad, man. I mean, when all of us start out, and how we grow and just, relishing those baby steps, when you're first able to. I remember the first time I put a pair of sweatpants on in rehab. It took me 5 minutes. It was miserable. I hated it. I was just like, my therapist would come in and she'd throw the sweats on the bed, and I'd be like, I'd be getting the clicker because I want the nurse to come and address me. And she's like, no, you're not getting out of bed today unless you dress yourself. So, but go from that to when you leave rehab, when you're getting your sweats on and off in about 2 minutes, and then it's like, oh, okay. So if I can put my mind to do this, and there's other things I can accomplish as well. And learning how to transfer in and out of a car. And that was a big deal because a lot of people said, you're a low point quad, you need to be driving a van. At the time I was like, no, man, I'm going to drive a car. So it's just those little baby steps you take along the journey that add up into the big steps.
Man, like when I was 18, I got hurt when I was 19. So I'm 19 years old, and someone's like, get a van right now. You're going to need it. You're going to want it later in life. And I'm like, so I got a Monte Carlo. I'm like, I'm not kidding you.
Monte Carlo SS, man.
But as a father of 3 right now, I'm like, man, I love my minivan, dude. I love it.
Yeah.
It's not like it doesn't have a ramp or anything. It's not modified, but it just has the hand controls in it. I just throw the chair behind me. But I'm like, this thing is so practical. My mind has shifted so much from being that 20-year-old kid that just wants to cruise. But
I've been a minivan dad for the last 5 years. And I've got the lift to get me up in there. I don't even know if I could, transfer it out of the car at this point anymore. If I'd even want to try with the chair and everything. So your perspective changes over the years. But 18, 19, 20 years old, man, I was gonna drive a car.
Live life. Yeah, exactly. Hey, so in light of like everything that you've been through, and if you got the opportunity, or maybe you have one of your jerseys at home, what does it mean to you when you see it or when you got to put it on, representing our country?
It was just, it was phenomenal. I mean, it's just, in 96, we won the gold medal in Atlanta. So we had all of our friends, all of our family there. They packed the stands with all the free tickets that they gave out, or however they did it. So when you play at the club level, you're playing in front of a few therapists and rec students or whatever.
Some guy who's in a hospital bed, barely alive on the side.
That's it, man. They wheel him down for the rehab and stuff. Yeah. And when you play at the national team level, Sydney, Australia, man. I mean, they packed out the dome, which I think was 15,000, and they had overflow of another 10,000 outside trying to get in, and everyone go. We literally had to have security because it was like we were like the 90s Bulls.
Man.
Autographs and so just wearing that USA gear, it just and of course when they how it is, man, when they start playing that national anthem and after they hang those medals around your neck, it just doesn't get any better than that.
I'm still dreaming about it, at least on the Paralympic stage.
Yeah,
we've gotten to see it at some different tournaments and stuff like that, but man, what a feeling. I can't imagine. And I had a similar experience in 2012 in London. It was one of the biggest games as far as the Paralympic exposure and growing the movement, just like Sydney was. Sydney was a huge tournament for Paralympics. And you go out and you got your USA stuff on, and someone's like, hey, can I take a picture with you? And I'm like, who with me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just some crippled dude. And they're like, no, let's take a it's pretty special. It makes you feel like an elite athlete, which,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty special deal. So, yeah. Hey, so as we're wrapping up here in the next 10, 15 minutes or whatever, what do you think our community, the rugby community, can do better to support each other? I think there's a lot of disconnect from the older guys that we don't get to see as much with you. We've gotten to see the boss, the old captain, Sean Meredith, quite a bit because he's been playing with Gumby, but or Norm, or it just seems like people they leave and it's kind of gone. And there's just so much mentorship opportunity, I think, with being able to learn from the people that come before you and learn from some of these guys like yourself that started playing in everyday chairs, and then it morphed into something into 2000, and all of a sudden it's like it grew the sport tremendously, and then into murder ball and all that stuff. But what are your thoughts for that?
Yeah, and it is. It's like anything else, I guess, in sports as well. And we don't have like an NBA, like a USQRA channel, like they have an NFL channel or an NBA channel where they can play the old games and kind of keep some of those players alive or whatever. And then from our standpoint, I could probably do a better job because I get into my life in the last 10 or 15 years, and I'm just focused on the here and now, and business world, and then doing ministry and kind of keep up, through my knowledge of rugby from, when I talk to Joe or talk to Goldie, talk to Terry, some of those guys, And other than, Rudy's the only one that's really connected to it at this point. So, we definitely need to figure out some ways. I mean, I don't have the answers, but, maybe even like local communities, reaching out to those guys who around you who played. Maybe you haven't played in 10 or 15 years, and just to kind of come in and talk about, not so much, how it was back in the day or whatever, maybe tell a few war stories, but just find out, how similar our stories are, like I said, we're ambassadors, every day I go out into the community, I'm an ambassador for the spinal cord injury community. Yeah. And, so we're ambassadors to one another, to kind of build each other up, like it says, in Proverbs, iron sharpens iron, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, so we need to be sharpening one another. But we've got to carry that out into the community as well. And I just think it's, human nature and quads too. I mean, we do tend to kind of congregate towards one another, we like to have our own little circle over here for whatever reason. And again, that's no different really pretty much than how culturally, we need to do. But I've always been one that, I want to go over here where people aren't like me. It would be comfortable just to stay in my own little zones. But I'm always the guy that, let me go hang out with the able-bodied people, or let me go hang out with my black brothers and sisters or whatever. And but we need to do a better job of networking with one another as well.
Absolutely. What do you think tips are for athletes wanting to make it to that next level? Rugby players that are in your position, like you were back in 91, 90, you're the 14th guy and then all of a sudden 5 years later you're playing in Atlanta in a pack jet. Like what's the tip? What was your big thing? I know you talked a lot about resiliency and working hard and maybe taking up some of those offers that Goldie or some of the sharp guys that talk to you about, but what's your tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think we often make life a lot more complicated than when I was in the business world, I wanted to be the best commercial real estate broker. So I studied the best commercial real estate brokers, and I got around the best commercial real estate brokers, and I asked those guys to mentor me. And I wanted to learn from them, and when I became a Christian believer, I said, okay, I want to grow spiritually. So how do I do that? So let me find some solid Christian men and surround myself with them and absorb what it is that they're doing. And, in my marriage and my family as well. And for sports, specifically wheelchair rugby, find the guys who are the best players at your classification, watch them, learn from them. What do they do? What are their habits, And, when I started playing rugby, it was kind of that cave quad era that we called it. And, guys would, go out and partake sometimes right before the game, sometimes at halftime of the game. It's just kind of how it was back then.
Yeah, I've heard stories. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, but then when I started kind of rising through the ranks, and especially when I got into the Tampa gym, And it's like, oh, okay, this is more than just doing it between 6:30 and 9:30 on a Tuesday night. This is a lifestyle thing. How do you eat? How do you drink? You don't party during tournaments. I mean, it's you don't party before tournaments. I mean, if that's your thing, if you want to party Sunday night after the tournament, go ahead and do so. But just the only way you learn those things is by studying the people that came before you and the people that are doing it now. So I looked at, with some of the other 1.5s, and I try to even measure myself against 2s, so let me go up a half a point in my classification. If you're 2.5, what are the best 3s doing? And try to measure yourself against them. But yeah, it's really just that models are out there. Just it's who are we going to emulate,
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. And it's easy. It's not complicated.
It's really not, man. But we make life so much more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah. What's your favorite moment in wheelchair rugby?
Oh man, it had to be Atlanta. Because I had my parents were there, my brothers, my extended family, and just that was '96. That was only 7 years post injury. So a little over 7 years from being, half dead in an ambulance, getting towed into the emergency room, having to call my parents at 2:00 in the morning. They said they had to call my parents. And I'm like, oh, can you wait till the morning? And I couldn't do so.
Yeah.
So to be 7 years later, man, where you're sitting there in front of your family, making them proud, national anthem, and just being around, and because it was in the U.S., we had so many people from the USQRA, which is what it was called at the time there. And it was just awesome. I mean, it was never going to get better than that, for me. 98 was great, winning the World Championships in Toronto, going to Sydney, winning in 2000. But it was never, from an athletic standpoint, it was never going to get better than that, And I will say, and I'll add this too. Looking back, the thing that I missed the most, though, it's definitely that camaraderie. The stories that I get together with some of the old guys. I mean, even some of the U of I guys. If we got together now, we'd tell stories that we probably haven't thought about in 25 years, and stories about the hotel rooms and the airports and the airplanes and just crazy stuff that we can only we can relate to. And that sometimes, in some ways, that eclipses even the athletic moments in glory.
Yep. Yeah, it seems like everyone I talk to, and I think the same. It's like those journeys, those inside stories that only you guys have with each other are so unique and pretty awesome to be a part of. So as we get wrapped up here, I'm going to rapid fire you some questions.
Losing you.
Real quick, I wanted to make sure I plugged your current All right.
I'm back. So I guess I think we lost each other.
Yep. Sorry about that. Okay. So Life Change Concept. Tell us a little bit about that before we get wrapped up here.
Yeah, Life Change Concepts. For me, it's a something that God birthed in my heart. I came out of doing FCA ministry with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes for close to 10 years, and it's a personal finance ministry which is based on biblical financial stewardship and just trying to help, especially young people, young couples, young individuals, trying to help them, lay that solid spiritual foundation when it comes to how to really how to better and succeed in life.
Awesome. Well, yeah, check that out, lifechangeconcepts.com. Check out Bill on Twitter at Bill Renje, and then Facebook as well, Bill.Renje Jr. Facebook.com/Bill.Renje Jr. I'm going to forego these rapid fire questions because it looks like the internet's unstable, so I don't want to keep popping in and out. But man, thank you so much for being on. Thanks for sharing your heart. Thanks for sharing your faith with us, your books, all the wisdom, man. It's awesome to hear from you, share you with the community that maybe didn't even know who Bill Renje was within our community. And I think this is just important to keep connecting some of you guys back that honestly won a lot of medals and have a lot of wisdom within how to be an athlete and how to succeed in life. So thank you so much, Bill. Really appreciate for having you on.
Joe, thanks a lot, brother. It was awesome, man.
All right. Take care.
See you, buddy.